Hola, muy buenas tardes nuevamente. Ya estamos en una nueva jornada, un nuevo día y vamos a aprender muchas cosas nuevas. El día de hoy, como nuestra primera participación, vamos a tener nuevamente a la maestra Orelly y a la maestra Idolina. Es un gusto volver a verlas y vamos a tener un tema muy interesante que vamos a tocar en esta ocasión. Un gusto, maestras. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Juan Carlos, for that warm greeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello.
Hello. So we're ready to start, I guess. Yes. So I'm going to share my screen with you. As you know, the topic is listening. So we're going to have some audio material as well. So let's share audio as well. Now, Idolina, can you tell me if you can see my screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet?
No.
Can you see it now?
No. I can. It's going. There it is.
It's going. All right. Here. Fantastic. So today the topic is strategies and activities for evaluating listening. Are we ready for this? This is what we're going to be looking at today. As the focus is evaluating, however, to understand how to do evaluation, how to develop tests. So we need to understand listening first. We need to understand how listening happens. So we're going to have a look at that. We're going to have a look at some tips for teaching listening, obviously some tasks for evaluating and for teaching, both of them, listening. So let's get started. So
Okay.
Idolina, tell us, what's listening?
Hi. I'm here, Orelly. Hopefully for the whole session, okay? Because my internet has been really, really bad today for some reason. But fantastic. What is listening? What do we refer to with listening? Well, to create listening and listening tests, first of all, we need to understand what listening is, how listening is constructed. Not hearing, we hear everything, but we don't have to concentrate in the hearing, okay? It's something that happens naturally. But listening is another thing. It is receiving language through the ears. Listening involves identifying the sounds of speech and processing them into words and sentences. When we listen, we use our ears to receive individual sounds, no? Like individual letters, like stress, like rhythm. So we use our brain to convert these sounds that we hear into messages that give us or that make meaning, no? So listening is the ability to accurately receive messages in the communication process. And it is definitely key to all effective communication because language comes in through the ear. That is the first thing we do when we're born. We begin hearing, listening to the words. Then later on, we make sense. But without the ability to listen effectively, messages are very easily misunderstood. So communication breaks. There is no communication if our messages are misunderstood. Is that right, Orelly?
Correct. So like it says here, it's a key. So for effective communication, listening is very important. So let's have a look at real life listening situations. So what are the things that we listen to in real life, Ido?
Well, first of all, Spotify. That's
yes.
the thing that I listen to. That's the first thing that I love.
Spotify. So music.
We listen, yes, definitely. We listen to loudspeakers in the supermarket. We listen to our family, my husband. Okay. We listen to podcasts. Don't you love podcasts? Have you ever heard of Oth? That's a nice podcast. Listen to it, eh? There, we listen to telephone, to voice messages, to meetings, to the radio, to seminars, conversations, gossips, watching TV, presentations, lots of presentations. Okay. So that's real life listening situations, no, Orelly?
That's right. And messages as well. Now it's so WhatsApp messages that we hear all the time as well. It's a very easy way to communicate.
Right.
right? So
totally agree.
that's correct. So, but when we listen to all these different things, what makes listening difficult? Sometimes, we get students saying, well, I hear it all these real life situations. However, I find difficulties understanding what they're saying. So what is it that makes listening difficult, you think?
Well, I think that something that is really, really difficult for students to grasp is that connected speech.
Yeah, that's right.
That eating of letters from words, okay? Letters that don't sound, okay? Some letters that sound very strong and others very, very weak. I think that would be the most difficult to
Yes,
understand.
let's have a look at some examples. So let's read this first sentences. This first sentence. Do you say do you eat out a lot, or you say do you eat out a lot?
Do you eat out a lot?
Exactly. So that sounds more natural. We don't say word by word in real life, do we? Or this one, no? I'll color when I get home. I'll color when I get home. So it sounds like a whole, yeah, exactly. It sounds like a whole stream of sounds and not word by word. You don't go and say, I'll call her when I get home.
No.
It's a whole stream of words, and that has to do with connected speech, like you said. So how about these next ones, Ido? How would you say them?
You should have been more careful. Contractions. English is a language with all of those simplified contracted forms.
That's right.
The simplification is not so simple for language learners.
No, that's right. And this is one of the things that we as second language learners find difficult. What about this one?
Ellipsis. Having a good time? Part of a word or sentence that has been omitted, which is necessary to make the sentence synthetically correct, but unnecessary when making meaning. No, when people to understand that it's a necessary to say the complete sentence. Okay, it is easily understood without some of the words that compose a grammatically correct sentence. No.
Yeah, that's right. You don't need it. You understand it. Having a good time? Well, I am. But you don't need it. You need
Me too.
You need great. So we don't need the whole structure to understand it. Like you said, it's to make meaning. So one of these things, like we said, make sometimes listening more difficult for language learners. Let's have a look at what they're called. So sentence stress, rhythm, speed, weak forms, especially contractions that you already mentioned, but also weak forms. So for example, for instance, the fish salmon. I love it in salmon. You don't say salmon.
No, we ate the L.
We ate the L. Yeah, exactly. So those are
together with the salmon.
Exactly. So that those type of things are the things that make listening difficult. Catenation, no? So the linking of the consonant with the following vowel and make a blended sound. That as well, that makes it difficult. Discriminating between similar forms. Right? Oh. So that different sounds in English that we don't have in Spanish, and makes it difficult for our brain to discriminate those sounds. Ellipses that you've already mentioned. So when we are not used to, or we are not understand, or we're not aware of all these different things going on with listening, then listening becomes very, very, very difficult. Right?
Totally agree.
Recognizing and interpreting intonation. Intonation is also where English is a very tonal language. You have a lot of meaning through intonation. So we need to learn also to interpret that intonation to understand the meaning of the speaker, the meaning that the speaker is making. So all of these different things we need to be aware of as second language learners, right?
Totally agree. And definitely it makes the language learning more difficult. Definitely it does.
So what happens in the listening processes? What happens when we're listening? Well, there are two processes that take place. One is bottom-up processing and top-down processing. So bottom-up processing implies decoding the message. So when we start listening to something, all we hear is different sounds, different phonemes, different sounds. And then by listening more, we start making sense of them. So phonemes become into letters, letters into words, and words into sentences. That's the first part. But then
it focuses on listening for detail, no? It involves tasks like that focus on understanding at a sound and word level, no? Mm-hmm.
Right. That's at word level. That's right.
Yeah.
But then we need to, then after that, then we go on to top-down processing, which is interpreting the message. To interpret the message that we hear, to put the words, the phonemes into a message, we use top-down processing, which implies for us understanding context, in the context in which we are listening, the whatever text or whatever we're listening to, and background knowledge. So if I go, for example, for the first time into a business meeting and I don't know the topic of the meeting, then it will be more difficult for me to understand. Yeah. So top-down processing as well as bottom-up processing are part of the listening process. So it is important to understand this part, because if, for example, for the first one, for decoding the message, what my brain will do is to match whatever sounds I hear to what I already know, to the grammar, to the vocabulary, to the sounds I know. So that's why it's so difficult to understand sometimes these similar word forms in English, like the E and the I sound, because we don't have it in our first language. So I don't have it in my brain. So to match that sheep or ship, it's difficult for me as a Spanish speaker, because I don't have that already in my brain. So what I need to do as a learner is to learn to decode those two different sounds. So when it comes to listening, I can identify if it is sheep or if it is ship. You see? So this is what happens in the listening process.
Working on those perception skills, no, is what we're doing, so that we understand what we perceive, no,
what we hear, exactly.
Process,
and then we interpret it according to the context that we have, the context where we are, and also the background knowledge, how much knowledge I have about the topic of that listening text.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. So when teaching Ido, what do we need to take into account?
Some considerations. Okay, can we the bottom-up strategies? Remember about that? The bottom-up strategies which were about understanding. Yes, there they are. Listening for specific details, for recognizing cognates, finding and linking words that which we already know and sound the same in our in both languages. We have to be careful with those false cognates, eh? But it's very easy to use this strategy, to recognize cognates, to find the cognates in a listening or in a reading or in whatever we are doing, no? Because this can be also applied for reading. Recognizing word order pattern, very important also in the bottom-up strategies. Mm-hmm. Word sounds, definitely part of this bottom-up strategy, where we learn about the language, where we go to the specifics of the language. We don't see the big picture, but this is very important to the perception of learning and developing these skills for recognizing all of these specifics of the language, to be able to have a general picture. So we go from the small items to the big picture, to finding out and figuring out the context. Okay, very good.
Yeah, exactly. So when teaching, we need to take into account all these different strategies that they both are needed for understanding a listening text. No, also obviously the top-down strategies include, some of them include listening for the main idea, predicting, and drawing inferences. And remember, the top-down strategies have to do with context. So it's very important to give the students context to when they are starting to listen. It's not the same. Like imagine if you didn't know that you now have to listen to a presentation about listening skills. The first part of it, you will be, if you just connect to the presentation, to the audio, and then you will be trying to understand what's happening, right? So who is this, who's that? But when you came here, you already had a context. You already had a context. You knew, you looked at the program and you knew the topic was listening. So you're expecting to hear certain type of language. So context is really important when we are developing listening. Okay, and that will help us to predict, to listen for the main idea, and to draw inferences. All right.
Totally agree.
Oh, summarizing as well, of course.
Okay.
So some consideration for teaching, Zido.
Okay, very good. What should we consider? We should give students confidence. That's the first thing that we have to do. We have to encourage them to listen and to listen again and to listen again and to listen again. As a matter of fact, there are some activities that focus on this, on giving students confidence by sending them some messages of small texts where they have to make meaning. Okay, and they begin writing what they hear, and then it's strategies that are important. Okay, to be able to build on this listening skill. Do not expect students to always understand every single word, and they should know this. You should tell them how important it is to listen and maybe take note of the words they understand. Listen again. And again, note of more words and try to construct the text that is being listened to. Okay, that's a strategy that we could use. Make sure that the learners are clear about what they are listening. Okay, tell them what they're going to be listening to, so that they will have a context, and that will make it a lot easier to understand what we are listening for or listening to. Okay. So what the main point or purpose of the activity is important. Help them develop specific strategies for listening, like intelligent guesswork, like they're listening to a text, and by the context, they can figure out some of the words, okay? This is like intelligent guesswork, okay? Pupils are used to drawing on their background knowledge to work out something that they're not sure of. Like we say, maybe even cognates. Okay, figuring out what it is because of the cognates that we find there. No, so that's what this intelligent guesswork is about. Okay?
Exactly, and it's not cheating, is it? Because we do that in real life. I mean, sometimes, even I can give you an example for myself. I'm not very good in economics. And then maybe if I sit a presentation on economics, then I won't be able to understand everything. But then because I have developed these strategies, then I will be able to understand the presentation, because I'm using this intelligent guesswork. And this is what we do, even in Spanish, I'm sure, I'm sure we do that as well.
I think we do it. Okay.
Yes, part of becoming proficient in a language, even in our own language. So,
right.
So other considerations is a specific listening task. Remember, there are 3 stages when we are teaching listening. The pre-listening stage to prepare them for the listening, while listening, which is the main activity, and then the post-listening for the activity to have to be more relevant to the students. So, and have activities for each stage. It's not the same to say, okay, you're gonna listen now, and then play the recording, and then the students will be like, oh, what am I supposed to be doing? Maybe guessing what they're going to be listening to. But we need to prepare them for that. So follow the 3 stages of the listening. Another consideration is, remember, the listening does not have to rely on the availability of pre-recorded material. Maybe the technology doesn't work, or electricity blackout, or all of that. So we cannot rely on that. Remember that the most listening is teacher talk. So whatever you talk about in the classroom, that's listening. every time students are listening to you or you are speaking, that's listening practice. So be aware of that. And I think this refers also a little bit on Spanish. I mean, we're not saying don't use Spanish at all in the classroom, but Spanish should be a tool. It's not a media, because otherwise you're giving them practice in Spanish, right? And I don't think we need more practice in Spanish. They need practice in English, right?
Totally.
And obviously consider pronunciation work. When we don't have to devote whole lessons for pronunciation, but when we present new language, we tend to focus a lot on language use, which is important. But as you can see here, based on this presentation, listening, understanding has to do a lot with how we perceive, how we know words are pronounced. So when we're presenting new language, also present the pronunciation of those new words, new language, new grammar, new vocabulary. Make your students aware of that so that you can develop that awareness of the language in them. What about scripts?
What about listening scripts? Which are the stressed and the unstressed words? What are these for? What is this for, Orelly? How does this help us understand listening better?
Well, I love using scripts. As I'm sure your books or your teachers' books contain the scripts of the audio material that you teach your students or you give practice to your students with. So you could use this for more practice. But after they have done whatever activity you give them, what you could do is with the listening scripts is just compare again what they listen to with the written word. So like that, they can link how a word sounds and how it is written. It's very different to Spanish. I think that's another reason why it's so difficult for us. But when you use the scripts like a teaching tool, you could do that so that they compare both. Also check, for example, sometimes the wrong answers. They could use the script to compare, to make sure what the answer is. Also, they could use this. If you could see this one on the screen, it has some dots on top of words. Those show the stress. So for some students, it's very easy to understand how a word is pronounced, but for others, it's more difficult. So it has to be more visual. So using dots on the stress words or syllables in the text really helps to use a lot. So use these listening scripts in your books to develop listening. They're really helpful. I love them.
Yes, really good. And we usually don't use them. The scripts are there and we usually use them. Teachers forget that they're there, but they're there for a reason, no? Maybe a reason could also be that you ran out of electricity and you would have to read the listening exercise yourself. Okay, but for developing certain listening strategies, those scripts are fantastic. So let's use them. Okay, very important.
Please do. So now let's have a look at some activities, and we're gonna have a look at evaluation activities as well. Well, we're gonna present some activities, and you will tell us if they are for evaluating or for teaching listening. Let's see. So, but first of all, like we mentioned in the previous session, if you were with us for the writing, we need to have a look at the characteristics of our learners, right, Ido? So tell us about
Totally agree. Is this important? These characteristics of learners, is it important for a listening exercise? It definitely is. There are many things that we don't know about in our different ages. Okay, I don't know, let's take the age. There are many contexts that we don't know about. And in the level we're working on also, there are many things that we lack, much knowledge about the language that we lack. We can take into consideration, for example, something that is very, very clear for me to understand this is medicine. Okay, if I listen to two doctors speaking in their doctor language, what do you understand? Nothing. For example, because you don't know much about medicine unless it's our companion Paco. Yes, he should have been a doctor. Okay, but the majority of the people, we don't know much about medicine and about medical terms. So if we don't know, or we don't know about that context, we will not make sense of what we are hearing. And it doesn't mean that we don't hear right, or we cannot understand because we are dumb. It means that we do not understand because of the context, because of of the words that are being used. We don't know them. We have no idea of what they are. Right, Orelly?
Correct. And the context has to do with age as well.
Totally.
Kids, for example, kids are what is the surroundings, family, friends, that kind of thing, which is very different to a working adult. The context in which they move are totally different, no? And totally. obviously the level as well, the level of proficiency, how much English they know. And this has to do with what students can do at each level. So what you can see on the screen are the candidate statements for grades 1st and 2nd of primary. So we're talking about 6, 7, 8-year-olds. We expect them to do the following. So we expect them that they can understand letters of the alphabet. They can understand some simple instructions given in short, simple phrases. Things like point to the pineapple, point to the pen, or listen, or very simple instructions. They can understand some very simple spoken descriptions of people and of everyday objects. Descriptions of people like name, gender, age, mood. Description of everyday objects like color, size, and location. Basic location, like it's next to, is on the table, is under the desk. And they can understand some very short conversations that use familiar questions and answers. Familiar questions like, what's your name? How old are you? Do you like pizza? Things like that. Remember, we are at 1st and 2nd grade students. So the context is very familiar, right? Like the school, like pets, maybe like family. And that's it. And remember,
their surroundings.
Their surroundings.
Their environment, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is all based on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. Okay. So again, if you want to know more about this, you can look in our website. So
grades 3 and 4, what can they do? Okay, what can students in grades 3 and 4 do? 3 and 4 would be like 9, 10 years old, probably, no? So they can understand very simple spoken dialogues about familiar topics with the help of pictures. Very important to give them prompts to relate to, so that they will have a context, something that they can make a connection with in relation to the world, to their surroundings, to what we are talking about, to the real world. No, they can also understand very simple spoken descriptions about people, about objects, because this is what they have been studying. No? They studied this in 1st, 2nd grade, and they've seen this, so they make the link with their previous knowledge. Okay, so everything has to do with previous knowledge. Okay, so what they can do right now is based on what they learned previously, right? Okay.
Correct. So for grades 5 and 6 and secondary school, they can understand instructions given in more than one sentence. So you could see it's adding up, it's getting more complicated. So now it's more than one sentence. They can understand simple spoken descriptions of objects, people, and events. Now it's events. Before, for the previous grades, it was just objects and people. Now it's events as well. And they can understand simple conversations on everyday topics. Again, the topics that they are in their context based around themselves. We're talking about 11, 12 years old students, or in secondary, up to 15. So we're talking about an A2 level of the Common European Framework. They can understand straightforward directions, provided that these are not lengthy or complex. So straightforward directions. And as I mentioned, this is based on the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. So I think this is, and we present this, we're sharing this with you because we believe it is important for you as a teacher to understand what you can expect of students so that you don't ask too much of them or too little of them. Remember that the first grades in primary, so lower primary, it's more like receptive. It's not until fourth grade that they start producing more, okay? More language, that is. So let's have a look at some activities now. So what about this one, Ido?
Okay, listen for the word. Using popular culture media is always a good way to practice listening skills. Okay, listening for words, using songs, watching TV shows, or even listening to podcasts will help build skills. Focus on specific language, maybe, that you want your students to listen for. To hear when they're listening to a song, ask them to listen to specific words, okay, and how they are used in the listening, or what words are next to them. I don't know. You can do lots of things with these songs and TV shows and anything that your students can hear, okay, to make connections, okay, about these words. While listening to the song or TV show, you can assign them different words to listen for and have them keep track of them. Often, of how often they hear these words. How many times did you hear the word "come" in the song? How many times did you hear this word in the television show? Okay, so listening for the word is very important. Okay, it's an activity that builds skills, listening skills.
Well, that's right, because we tend to use this a lot, songs. So usually fill in the gap. So this is a different way of using that. Also, I found this great website that I want you to see. I want to show with you for this, to share with you. Sorry. So for this one, I have to stop sharing my presentation. And what I'm going to do is to go to the internet. But now let me see. I'm sharing my screen. And this is called English. Let me see. Share audio, share. Okay. So can you see it now, Ido?
Not yet. Here we are. Okay. Yes. Orelly.
Okay. This is
interesting.
Fantastic. Okay. This is English. So it's a website. It's from YouTube actually. But what it is like, of course, being YouTube, they have like a huge database of videos. And what you do is, if you see here on the screen, there is the little magnifying glass. So what you put here is what word you want your students to practice or to use. So it could be for pronunciation, but I think it's great for listening. So here I put the word how's it going. So what it shows is all these different videos in their database that contain that word. So what about if we put another word? So let's use water. Oh, and the great thing, if you see here, you can hear all different accents, the videos with different accents, the US, an American accent, a British accent, or Australian accent. So here I have selected all, but let's make it more focused. Let's see the difference between US. Here we go.
Be territorial. You do not want to mess with a hippo or a rhino.
Let me play.
How do you find a dinosaur? Sounds impossible, doesn't it? It's not.
Okay, here the word water, did you?
In California, we don't have a water problem as much as we have an agriculture problem. And
we're in right now, the serene water, the perfect temperature, the hue coming from that.
And the key processing step only requires soap and water. So what we did.
Wow. And the regions are as small as Whitewater, Wisconsin, and as large.
Okay, so did you hear all of those different videos? So different videos, but they all contain the word water.
Can we change it to British? Can we change it to British?
Yes,
so that they can hear the British?
Let's see the British.
You go to a mikveh, you immerse yourself in the water.
Oh, sorry, it's the internet.
And a physical action backside.
Phones than to clean running water. And among them,
you will be like someone trying to make rough water smooth with a flat iron.
Hydrogen exists on Mars in the form of H2O, but water may be difficult or impossible to extract.
Okay. So did you hear the different accents? Water.
Water.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Correct. Right.
So it's fantastic for listening to different pronunciation, different accents. Yes, also.
That's right. So let me go back to my screen, to my presentation now. And what do you think of that activity, Ido?
Orelly, I'm sorry, I couldn't make sense of what you asked me.
Oh, sorry, it's the internet.
I'm having trouble with the audio again. Can you please repeat?
Yes, can you see my screen now?
Yes, there it is.
Okay. Right, so I was talking about the website, but never mind. So
it was fantastic.
This is good for you. You can get your students to identify, rather than telling them which word you're looking for, you get them to guess the word that you are practicing, that you are practicing, and then the one that you're putting on the search for these videos. And you know, you could also use it for yourself for developing pronunciation too. So I think it's a great tool that you could use in online classes, but like we're doing now, sharing screens, but also you could do it when you go back face to face with your students, right?
Totally agree. Yes.
So what about if you are practicing specific sounds, Ido?
Okay, another good activity to do when we're studying specific vowel sounds is to give students 2 different color note cards. Orelly, do you have your color note cards ready? This is going to be a review activity, assigning 1 vowel to a red card, which is going to be the I sound in ship, and another one, a blue card, to the sound of sheep. The I sound for ship and sheep. Okay, so the ship sound would be red, and the sheep, the E sound, would be blue. So Orelly, what if I give you some words and you show me if it is the I sound as in ship or the I sound as in sheep? Okay.
You know what? I didn't do my homework and I didn't do my cards.
Okay,
but then instead of a red card, I have a white card. Can you see it?
Yes.
And instead of a blue, I have a green one. Okay.
Fantastic. So white is going to be the I, the short I as in, and the green card is going to be the I like in sheep. Okay. Yeah. Right? Okay. So sit. Show me the card. Sit. Okay. Seat.
Again?
Seat. Like a seat, a chair, a seat. I lost you, Orelly.
Oh, you didn't see me. I think it's your internet, Ido, because I'm there.
I'll give you words. I can't see you anymore. I don't know if you're raising the right card, but hopefully the teachers will tell us if you are raising the right card.
You know what? I think we could move on, so you can, because I think the internet is playing up. But I think teachers got the idea, right? So you have 2 different cards, and then you assign a sound to each card, and like that you are evaluating listening. But it's also an activity for practicing. So do you think you could do this activity face to face? Because we're doing it online and it works. So do you think you could do it, well, relying on the internet, right? But you think it can work face to face as well?
Totally. It works perfect face-to-face also.
Yeah. Another thing that we need to do, or we could do, is purposeful listening, especially with young learners. Young learners have very short attention span. So their attention goes really quickly. So we have to give them listening activities that are really engaging for them. So one idea is to do sequential story blocks. So they love listening to stories. So stories are a really good way to develop listening in young learners, or for young learners. And what you could do is, before you read the book, the storybook, you can bring pictures that are or that match that particular book, and the students have to put the pictures in order in the sequence according to the storyline. So I think that's another idea that you could develop with your students.
Fantastic.
And also, do you think you could test your students with this activity, Ido?
Totally.
Yeah.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, so the activities that we have shown so far, you could use them as for assessment or for practicing listening. They're good for both of those, and for more informal feedback for you, more informal assessment or more informal evaluation for you. But by doing so, you gauge how much your students are progressing in the listening. And now we're going to have a look at some more formal assessment. Right,
Okay. In this formal assessment instructions, it's very, very important that we read and understand the instructions. Orelly, for some reason, I cannot read the instructions. Can you read them out for me, please?
Sure. It says, listen and tick the box. There is one example.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to listen, and can you please click on the yeah.
The sound, yeah.
Part 3. Look at the pictures. Now listen and look. There is one example. What's Pat doing?
Is Pat at your house?
Yes, she is.
Is she playing in the garden?
No, she's reading in the living room.
Can you see the tick? Now you listen and tick the box. 1. Which is May?
Where's May, Mum?
Is that her wearing trousers?
No, she's wearing a skirt.
Oh, yes, and a t-shirt. She looks great.
I think it's letter A. What do you think, Orelly?
No,
2.
I don't think so.
Which is Nick's favorite ice cream?
Is that an apple ice cream, Nick? No, it's pineapple. Is that your favourite? No, my favourite's banana.
Okay, so for sure it's letter B, no? Okay.
That's right. So what do we see here, Ido? They are very specific. From what we talked about so far, you could see that there is time, there is enough time. The recording gives the student enough time to make this choice. It's not so quick, it's not so fast, so to having enough time. And also
Totally
the instructions are very straight and clear. The other thing that you can observe there is the example. Students are given an example. Why do we need all this?
Definitely, it's very important so that we are sure that the students really know what to do and how to do it and what is expected of them. This is very important.
Yes, and if you see also there's enough space between question and question. Why is that? Because remember, they're listening, but they're also answering. So they're doing two things at the same time. If you put the questions to one right after the other, you're not given the chance to the student of writing their answer. Now, this is an example for very young learners. We're talking 7-year-olds or 6, 7, 8-year-olds who cannot yet write full sentences, but they can identify the vocabulary. That's what we're testing here, right? Vocabulary. So
totally agree.
This is just an example for that level. And also look at the context. We're not asking about these other different things. We're talking about that young children are very familiar with, like clothes, not the uniform, or ice cream. Most children love ice cream.
And this is totally in agreement with what we saw yesterday also, no? With the can-do statements that we saw for writing. Okay, so it's like the same thing. This is listening, but they can do mostly basically the same things, no?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have a look at at another example. This is for a little bit older learners, for 9, 10, 11-year-olds. Let's have a look again. Listen to the example.
Part 5. Look at the picture. Listen and look. There is one example.
Can you see the teacher?
Yes, I can. She's helping the boy.
That's right. Look at her hair.
Yes, it's curly.
That's right. Color the teacher's hair yellow.
Okay.
Can you see the teacher's yellow hair? This is an example. Now you listen and colour and write. 1.
Now, do you want to color something?
Yes, please. Can I color the clock?
Okay. What color?
Blue is my favorite.
Okay, that's a good color for the clock then.
And they give you time, no? To color.
That's right. That's the time to color. Yes.
Fantastic.
2.
Now, would you like to write something for me?
What? A word?
Yes. Can you see the map on the wall?
Behind the teacher?
That's right. Can you write the word map below it?
Okay, I'm writing that now.
Part.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. So as you can see, this is not just writing words that you had that imply listening. Listening is about understanding and giving feedback. In this case, the feedback or the answer is to actually do the coloring. So you can use this type of exercises as well to test your students' listening. They also have to write. They have to write the word map. You could also see that the recording gives enough time for the students to answer. Another consideration is that this is, as it says here on the screen, is taken from the Cambridge exams. And in the exams, they listen to the recording twice. Why is it twice, Ido? Is it because we're helping the learners, or is it cheating? What do you think about that?
No, totally not. Totally not. If you didn't hear it right, maybe there can be external factors that affect or prevent you from listening well. So they give you a second opportunity all the time. This is fantastic. This is really helps the students very much.
Well, because this is what we do in real life, right? In real life, if you cannot hear the first time, you can always say, "Oh, can you repeat that again, please?"
Clarify.
So, clarifying, and it's part of language proficiency too. We should be able to have the language. We should have the language to interact in a English world kind of thing, right? So I don't think we have much more time to see the rest of the examples. But look, this is for older learners. This is for 6th graders kind of thing. They have to fill in the gaps, but you could see we give them input. Here's the input, colorful. So what is the listening about, Ido, in this case?
I'm sorry, Orelly, I couldn't make sense.
You couldn't hear. What is the recording that they're going to be listening about here?
No.
No, you cannot hear me. Okay. So, but here you could see that the recording is going to be about sports. So what are we doing there? Remember, we talked about the listening process. So we need context. Context helps us understanding whatever we're listening to. So this is why this is an exam, and they still have all these clues to help us understanding the context.
Part 2.
This is another example. This is for older learners. This is more like for secondary school. So there's not much color, but still they have some words here that will help the students as well to understand what the recording they're going to be listening is going to be about. So in this case, it's about museums. So when you do that, you're setting context for the students. So it's easier for them to relate to whatever is coming next, to whatever they're going to be listening to. And
now look at...
Oh, and I think all of this is last time you asked us about how about online. I've seen this, I don't know, maybe some of you are familiar with this app. It's called Quizzes. It's very good for online evaluation. And as I understand, you can also include audio. So we don't have time to have a look at it, but I recommend it. I really like it. It's quite easy. It's very easy to use. You can create an account. It's a free account. And then you can use it, I think, putting audio on it to load audio onto it. You need an upgrade, but you can, if you don't want to do that, you can set the audio online like I did now, and the students can answer on their devices. So I'll invite you to explore that for online evaluation. And I'd like to finish with this. It's a summary of what we have seen this afternoon, what we've seen today. We understand how listening is constructed. Remember, there are two processes, and when we're teaching listening, we take into account those two processes, top down and bottom up. We also look at a little bit of some tasks for assessing listening. And remember, when you are designing your listening tasks, think of pre-listening, while listening, and post-listening. And also, when you're preparing your tests, remember, context and background knowledge is important for your students. And when you are training them, remember also pronunciation work is part of understanding, it's part of listening too. Ido, do you have any other comments?
No. Thank you very much. Just thank you, Orelly. It was fantastic sharing screen with you. And we see that Enrique is already here.
Yes,
so
hi.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I didn't want to interrupt you because I was just like paying attention. But thank you very much for being here with us. And as you can see, we don't have that much time left. So I'm just gonna ask one question, if that's okay with you, and maybe and I'm sure the teachers will appreciate your insight, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, so this question comes from, oh my God, I lost it. Oh, Dante Francisco Gonzalez, and he's asking, how can you motivate students when they feel bad because they didn't do so well in a listening activity?
Well, that's a great question, and motivation is paramount in learning. And what I think we need to give them tasks. I think this is why it's so important to have a look at what we are expecting of students, right? It has to be at the right level. Maybe we are expecting too much. So maybe we need to adjust how we're testing our students. I will invite you, teacher, to have a look at how you're testing your students and visit these websites that we have mentioned, so you can see exactly what is expected of that age of student, that context, and that I would say that.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Idolina. Thank you, Orelly. The teachers are just super happy to have you again. You know, you are very loved amongst the Peroni teachers community. So thank you very much for being here with us again. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
No, it was totally ours. Now we have Juan Carlos here also. He's going to give us some important messages. And I'm going to say goodbye now, but thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, teachers.
Thank you, Idolina. Thank you, Orelly. It was a great presentation. Thank you very much again. On behalf of all teachers and people from Prani. Y bueno, vamos a continuar con la siguiente participación. Vamos a tomarnos unos minutos de descanso. Y nos podemos ver en unos 5 minutos más con la siguiente presentación, que va a ser muy interesante, al igual que esta. No se vayan. Hola nuevamente, estamos de vuelta. Bueno, vamos a continuar con nuestra segunda participación del día de hoy y última. Bueno, estas dos expositoras son muy reconocidas y les voy a comentar un poco acerca de ellas, no las conocen. Una de ellas es Philippa Coleman. Ella es maestra en lingüística aplicada. Es especialista en desarrollo docente con amplia experiencia en enseñanza y formación docente del inglés en múltiples contextos, incluidos el de Australia, Asia, Europa, Medio Oriente y América Latina. Durante las últimas 3 décadas, ha trabajado con profesores internacionales en las áreas de enseñanza del idioma inglés, aprendizaje integrado de contenido y lenguaje e inglés como medio de instrucción. También contamos con la presencia de Fiona Wiebusch, maestra en lingüística aplicada y candidata a doctora. Ha sido maestra de inglés para hablantes de otros idiomas desde 1998. Comenzó su carrera como maestra de secundaria antes de trabajar en centros universitarios de idiomas como profesora, formadora y directora académica. Fiona tiene una amplia experiencia en la dirección de programas de formación de profesores en instituciones de habla inglesa y ministerios de educación en Arabia Saudita, Australia, Chile, China, Corea del Sur, Hong Kong, Japón, Nueva Zelanda, Taiwán y Vietnam. Ambas son directoras de the Queensland Institute en Australia. We're very excited to have you here. Nice to meet you.
Hola, good evening. Hi, everyone. Nice to
Hi,
see
everyone.
Well, we're so excited for your presentation. So if you want, we can start now.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, it's wonderful to be here. Philippa and I are so excited to join you in Mexico. And my name is Fiona Wiebusch, and I'm joined by my colleague Philippa, as you heard us introduced. Give us a wave, Philippa.
Hi, everyone. Hola, Mexico.
It's bright and early in the morning here in Australia, so welcome to Australia as well. We are delighted to be here with you today. So we would also like to thank our Prony hosts for welcoming us to your wonderful few weeks of professional development. And we know you've had a big day, so we are grateful for your time in joining us as well. We would also like to thank our colleagues at the Australian Embassy for helping us to join you today as well. So let's get started. So please let me know in the chat now if you can see my slides on your screen. Say, yes, we can see it. Lovely. Thank you so much. So the title of our presentation today is Practice Makes Progress. And what we're really talking about is some effective formative feedback strategies for the English language classroom. And in particular, we're thinking about being in the COVID-safe classroom. So you will experience some activities today that will be appropriate for the physical classroom, but also for the virtual classroom and working in the online space, and thinking about ways that we can still continue to let our learners know where they are going, where they are right now, and where to go next, which is really what the purpose of formative feedback is, giving our learners feedback along the way during their learning journey. So I will be sharing everything from our presentation today with you in the chat, and also it will be available through the Prony resources later today. During our presentation, there will be some demonstration activities, so we hope you still have some energy left to join us in the chat. A little bit of theory towards formative feedback, and some time for questions at the end. And as I mentioned, there'll be lots of bonus resources and links that we can share with you as well. Today, we're going to be working from not so much a PowerPoint, but from a digital display tool called Padlet. can you let me know in the chat if you have used Padlet before? Have you used Padlet? I can see some people in the chat. Terrific. Well, if you haven't used Padlet before, it's been really helpful for us in communicating with our students in the virtual classroom. So that's why we decided to share it with you today as our presentation tool. And hopefully it will give you some ideas of how you might use it for your students. So I'm going to share our Padlet with my colleagues at Prony, and perhaps they can share it with you in the main chat as well. So welcome aboard and welcome to Padlet. Isn't it bright and colourful? So we're going to be looking at a range of challenges that we encountered ourselves in continuing our practices in formative feedback during the times of COVID and having to keep space and distance in our physical classrooms or in our virtual classrooms. How are we connecting with our students? The challenges around understanding our learner needs, challenges around monitoring learner progress along the way, challenges around setting up some routine communication channels with our students. So one of the first things we need to do before we can start giving feedback to our learners, of course, is understanding where they are right now and getting to know them a little bit. I know that many of you have just returned to classes or will be next week or in the weeks ahead, and you'll be doing lots of activities too to get to know your learners. So perhaps this is one way that you might be able to get to know your learners. Again, we're using a Padlet here, a digital display board, a bit like having a notice board with things stuck up around the room behind you. This is our digital alternative. So here you can see Philippa and myself, and we have made a little post saying a few sentences about ourselves. So, I am from Brisbane. I ride a motorbike to work every day. I'm a musician in a band. Or am I? Only two of these things are true. So can you tell me in the chat? You can tell me the lie. Which number do you think is the lie about me? Oh, I see Elizabeth thinks 3. No way, Fiona. There's no way you're a musician. Juliana says 2. Oscar says 2. No way you ride a motorbike every day. All right. So, Philippa, ask me some questions. Let's see if you can find out the truth before we move to...
Okay, well, I'm going to start at the bottom, Fiona.
Sure.
Are you a musician in a band?
Well, yes, I am, actually. I play the ukulele.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So that one's true. Okay, next question. Do you ride a motorbike every day?
The answer is true. Yes, I do.
Okay.
I can show you a picture, Philippa, of my motorbike. Me, a little motorbike like this. This is my dream, but this is my reality. Me, little scooter. Also a Padlet here for my students. Righto. Well, how about you, Philippa? Can you tell me in the chat, everybody? Let's look at Philippa's sentences. Does she love growing vegetables? Does she speak Chinese fluently? Was she born in New Zealand? Which one is the lie? Not true. Tell me in the chat. Maribel says she wasn't born in New Zealand. Tavio says, I think she doesn't speak Chinese. Annabelle says, maybe she wasn't born in New Zealand. Lots of people saying she doesn't speak Chinese. All right, let's find out. Philippa, do you love growing vegetables?
I do. I love growing vegetables and eating the vegetables that I grow.
So that's true. And do you speak Chinese fluently?
Well, unfortunately, no. Pero hablo español y estamos encantadas de estar con ustedes esta mañana o esta tarde en México. So
Yeah.
Chinese, no. Spanish, yes.
So that means you were born in New Zealand. Is that true?
It is. It's true.
Okay. And look, we already have some colleagues joining us here on our Padlet. So yes, you can see your students can interact with you on Padlet too. All they need to do is simply click on the little plus button. They can look for pictures. If you have young learners who aren't making sentences yet, they can say something about a picture that they love, click post, and there they are. Other people can comment, and away you go. I don't know. I use it a lot for homework for my students as well. So I can come in and give them some comments and feedback. We've done it as a get to know you, but you might like to use Padlet for a variety of options to give feedback to your students. So you're very welcome to join us in the Padlet at some time in the future. You're welcome to post whatever you like. That one is open for you. So you'll find it here. Everything that's in yellow is a link, but wait, my teacher friends, do not click on all the other links yet or you'll ruin the surprise. So try to hold on if we can. We know you're probably excited. So one of the other things that we need to do to understand our learners, of course, is get to know them and build those relationships. So feedback processes are much more comfortable with our learners. But certainly, we also want to find out some information from them. And for us in our classrooms, of course, we can do paper surveys and things, but exchange of paper is something we need to be a little bit careful of now in the COVID era. So Mentimeter is something that we are using as a digital alternative to share with our students. So I would like to get to know you a little bit as our audience. So I'm going to, again, drop the link in the chat for you to my colleagues and see if they will share that with you and ask you to come and join me and share your response. Where will you be teaching next, whether it be next week or next month? Will you be in the physical classroom? Let's see. In the virtual classroom? Probably both. I wonder if you can join us there. If you're working on a phone, there's also a QR code there if it's easier for you to scan. I'll see if I can see some responses coming up now. Ooh, lovely. So I'll let that continue. But as of right now, up until just a few seconds ago, it looks like we all think probably both, that we will continue on this journey of moving between our virtual spaces and our physical classrooms with our students. So thank you for sharing that. It's good for us to get an understanding of where you are and what type of classroom environment you will be in. But of course, you might use this kind of poll with your students to discover lots of bits and pieces of information that you want to know about your learners. So for us, the activities that you will see in the remainder of the session will give you opportunities to use them both in the physical classroom and also in our virtual spaces. But many of the tools, as we're communicating with you from very far away, are all digital tools for today, but we'll discuss some adaptations. So we're getting to know our learners a little bit by finding out some information about them. We used Padlet earlier for our 2 truths and a lie, but in my physical classroom with my young learners, often we will have mini whiteboards or simply a big piece of paper, or if I'm lucky, a laminated piece of paper so that they can write on it many times and wipe it off. And they can put their sentences or their drawings there and not really move very far and just show their classmates their sentences or the things that they like or that they love. And their colleagues, their classmates in the same way can guess. They can say, I think number 2 is not true. I think number 1 is not true. And those sorts of things for the physical classroom. And similarly for our polls, as we mentioned, we might be handing out paper, but is it possible that we could send a Mentimeter to our students, perhaps the day before we come to class if we want to get some information to use in class with students? So it's time for a little bit of theory to continue our journey of discussing formative feedback with you. We know that the theme of the conference has largely been around resilience. And this is one of the, a beautiful drawing that I found another teacher had placed online about the components that they felt led to resilience as teachers. The good news is taking a course, such as coming to these Prony workshops over the last few weeks, we are already contributing to building our resilience as educators. But I wonder about our students and their resilience and how they're going in this situation too. And for us, I think that feedback has become even more important to our students. It's a way of reassuring them that things are going to be okay and that you're progressing very well in your work. Wouldn't it be lovely for our students to have that positive affirmation from us as their teachers as they struggle with their new learning spaces and situations too? So there are lots of different definitions of feedback that we will share with you here on the Padlet, some of them from Cambridge and some of them from the Australian education system. But in particular, one that we liked was looking at Scott Thornbury's work, a very prominent English language teaching author, as I'm sure many of you know well. It was actually some time ago, but he started talking about technology, and he was at that time he was thinking about, is technology really helpful in the language classroom? So he started going back to basics and looking at the principles that underpins what makes language learning successful. And these were, the good news is there was 5 things that he discovered in his research that we have to do as English language teachers to ensure our learners are working well. They need comprehensible input. They need opportunities to interact with each other to use the language. They need output and production opportunities, and they need regular moments of timely feedback from their teachers, from their peers, and potentially from the world around them if they have an opportunity and exposure to English in other places beyond their classrooms. If we get those 4 things right, then hopefully motivation is increased towards language learning as well. So it's pleasing to see that feedback really is situated in those top 5 things for successful language learning. And I'm sure we have those experiences ourselves as learning an additional language. So in the Australian school system, I'm going to share some resources with you of how our teachers here work with learners who are from migrant backgrounds or who have English as an additional language as well. And some of these resources we felt spoke very well to feedback generally, and that were really applicable to the school settings anywhere, not just in Australia. So if we look at their definition of what effective feedback looks like, I'll give you a moment to read that. It's that last line there about effective feedback is designed to achieve improvement in student learning. So continuously commenting on student performance towards their learning goals. And in a nutshell, it's about effective feedback is about information and collecting information about students' progress towards that learning goal in their classroom. And if we read further into their papers, which I've also shared on the Padlet with you, these couple of paragraphs really appealed to me in terms of what I need to do as a teacher towards ensuring I have opportunities for formative feedback for my learners. I'm going to ask you to read these paragraphs now and tell me a quick summary by using a hashtag. I know you're very used to hashtags in social media. So, and we know that hashtags are usually 1 or 2 words that highlight the key point. Can you tell me in the chat, hashtag these couple of paragraphs? What do you notice? So when Philippa and I were discussing it earlier, yes, one of the hashtags that came up for us was, yes, of course, feedback, but also evidence, that word evidence. How do I know that my learners are learning? And what types of activities can I do for them to show me that they are learning? Not just testing in their summative feedback, but along the way, how can I get regular opportunities to gather evidence from my students? Yes, lovely, Karina. So hashtag assessing students, hashtag feedback pays up. I love that, Alfredo. Fantastic. Yeah. So we want to think about those, not those end of course assessments, but we want to talk about the moments along the way that let learners know where they are and where they're going next. And that's what we're thinking about for formative feedback. So in a nutshell, every student should be able to answer these 3 questions at any time in their learning. Where am I going? How am I going? And where are we going next, teacher? So these are the kinds of activities that we want to share that help our students be able to answer these questions. So I need to make sure I've got moments to let them learners know where they're going, to let them know where they are right now in their learning journey and how they got there and what they might need to do differently as they move on into the future. So I'm going to hand over to Philippa now. We've talked a little bit about understanding our learners and where they are now. She's going to talk to you more about the second challenge of monitoring learner progress.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so yes, I'm going to talk to you about our second challenge, monitoring learner progress. How can we do this in our physical face-to-face classroom, and how can we do it in our virtual classroom? So as Fiona was talking about, we're continually trying, as teachers, we're continually trying to assess and gather information to evaluate how our learners are going, what they're doing. So we can use this information to plan our next steps and to guide our students in their learning journey. So one of the strategies that we use is a barometer. It's called a barometer. And I think you'll probably know that, sorry, I'll just turn up my volume because I've seen that someone said that the volume is a little low. I'll just turn it up a bit and hopefully you can hear it. Thank you for that comment. Okay, so one of the strategies that Fiona and I use is called a barometer. Now, you'll probably know that a barometer measures air pressure to inform the weather forecasts about their predictions for the future. Well, in our classrooms, we use barometers to measure the thinking and the feeling of our learners in relation to an activity or a question. So, let's evaluate the activities that you experienced with Fiona to see how the barometer works in our virtual classroom. So, I want to understand how you think your learners would manage the 3 activities you've just done with Fiona. Okay, so the first activity, 2 truths and a lie on Padlet, the get to know you activity. How do you think that your students would manage this activity? I want you to show me physically with your bodies. I want you to show me physically with your bodies. So, if you think it's easy for your students, easy. Medium, put your hands on your head. Or difficult, your hands on your shoulders. Okay? Easy, medium, or difficult. How would your students manage with the 2 truths and a lie? Okay, great. Easy, medium, difficult. Okay, well, to be honest, I can't see you. I can only see Fiona, and she's doing it, as you can see. So what I want you to do is give me your response by typing into the chat. If you think it must be easy, please type E. M, medium. D, difficult. Let's see. Let's see. So I've got some people saying easy, like head, shoulders, knees and toes. Yeah, okay. Easy, easy. Okay, great. So some people saying medium, some people saying easy. So this is a really easy way, a good way to gauge the room by showing physically with your bodies. Okay, what about the second activity? The second activity that we did, the Mentimeter poll. How would your students manage this activity? Would it be easy, medium, or difficult? Or type in the chat. Okay, so some people saying, okay, again, some people saying medium, some people saying difficult. Okay, all right, great. Also saying easy tends to be great, okay, fine. Some people saying difficult. So we have a range here. Finally, the hashtags activity. Summarizing a text in a couple of words or a short phrase. How would your students manage the hashtag activity? Easy, medium, or difficult? Easy if they have a device. Yeah, okay. Beginning it was difficult and we got better with practice. Well, yes, that's true. Absolutely. Yeah. So perhaps this activity may be a little bit more cognitively challenging for younger learners, but with older learners in the elementary classroom, you might want to give it a go. Might be appropriate. So a barometer is a helpful strategy that we can use to gauge the thinking of our learners in the classroom and how they're doing with coping with a task or an activity. All right, so let's think about, what about if I need to monitor my learners' progress while they're producing something? Some writing or vocabulary practice, for instance. How will I monitor and guide their output? Okay. So one method that we've used for this is Jamboard. Okay. Fiona, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen?
I can tell you I can see it well.
Lovely, thank you. Okay. So can you type in the chat?
You'll have to close your Word document.
Oh, okay, thank you. Put it somewhere else. Thanks. Okay. Can you please type in the chat if you have used Google Jamboard with your students? Can you type yes in the chat if you've used Google Jamboard with your students? All right, so Google Jamboard is an interactive whiteboard. No, okay, some people yes, many people no. Okay, thanks for your feedback. Google Jamboard is an interactive whiteboard that we can use synchronously and asynchronously. So our learners can join the Jamboard, they can play and collaborate on the Jamboard with each other and also with you as the teacher. And you can help and support and guide their learning. Yeah, great. And then this simple toolbar on the left-hand side is really good for low literacy learners. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to join me on the Jamboard in a moment. Please join me on the Jamboard. So.
Oh, a few people there already.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Fantastic. All right, then.
Not me.
Sorry, what was that?
It's not me. So a few people have joined us already.
Great. Oh, well, that's fantastic. I'm going to ask you to add a sticky note. Okay, but I'm also going to ask you to join me. Oh, look, great. I'm going to ask you to join me on page 2. Okay, so page 2 is a whiteboard of our awesome ideas. And I'd like you to tell us one example of feedback you can do in your classroom to guide your students and offer them some guidance. So choose, for example, feedback on, feedback on spelling tests. So one example of feedback that you do with your students. So let's put it over here. I'd like you to choose any colour except orange and add your idea to the Jamboard. Talk to them on WhatsApp.
Feedback on audio projects.
Wow.
Feedback on written assignments, a contest or a game. I see. So Philippa, you are the orange one.
Yes.
So you can give me feedback straight away.
Exactly.
I get it.
So what I do is I say to my students, please don't use orange because that's me giving you feedback. So I can give you feedback as you're working on the Jamboard, or students can give each other feedback as they're using the Jamboard. So as you can see, Jamboard works extremely well in a virtual classroom, but it can also work in a physical classroom if your school has that connectivity. Before COVID, we'd be moving around the classroom and giving our feedback to our students while they were working, possibly even writing on their notebooks or on their paper. I'm actually going to thank you everyone for your ideas.
Great.
Okay.
So, thank you,
Philippa. Okay, yeah. And so it's also a really great way of minimizing paper in these COVID times. It's also so we don't, once upon a time, we would have been moving around the classroom to give feedback to the students. But now we can do it via Jamboard, so minimizing the contact between students, students to students, students to teachers, and even students taking these papers home to their schools. Google Docs has the same function. Maybe many of you have used Google Docs, but this is a really colourful way, and we can use many of the functions like drawing pictures, which is great for language learners. So there's finally one more test that I'd like to do with you. It's called the five-finger test, a scale of 1 to 5. I'd like to know from you, how likely are you to use Google Jamboard with your students? How likely are you to use it? Number 1, I'll never use it. Number 1, I'll never use it. Number 3, maybe. Number 5, I'm going to use it every day. I'm going to use it every day. So, can you type in the chat with my students? I'd ask them to show me on their fingers. 3.
Yes, I can see lots of 5s, the 4s, lots of.
Oh, fantastic.
Maybe. We should point out that Google Jamboard is free. So it's available to anybody that has a Gmail account. So even your students will be able to use it too. I'm mindful we have just a few minutes to go. So thank you, Philippa. We might just touch on our final challenge before we close our session for today. So we know now that we can use Jamboard for written feedback, but I'm sure that we are all... Sorry, Philippa, you'll have to stop. Yeah, that's okay. I know that we are probably all missing this opportunity to chat to our students directly, have them come to our desks and be near us and share some feedback with them with our voices in conversation. Hopefully we will have those opportunities coming into the next few weeks. Perhaps we are masked, but if we're looking for ways to look for other ways that we can still have those routine communication channels, I'm going to let you explore Flipgrid in your own time, which is a video based system where teachers and students get their own video space and they're able to share videos with each other, a bit like WhatsApp, except it requires no storage, no file administering. It's a lovely tool, so I'll let you explore that one. But the one I'd like to show you now is something that I use to get my students to record their voice and for me to record my voice in response to them. For example, recently my students were reading a book called Possum Magic, which is a beautiful Australian book, and the link to the book itself is in the Padlet. But I would read the book to my students, but I also want them to read aloud. And because we can't perhaps sit near each other and have them read to me, I was looking for something that they could use that was very simple and that they could manage, perhaps even using their parents' mobile phone, and that really just had one button for them to press and to be able to create a file for me. So we used a tool called Vocaroo. Sounds a bit like kangaroo, but with voice. So Vocaroo.com. So for my students, they can access it on a browser, they can access it on their parents' phones, and it's one button. Let's see what happens. If I press the big red button now, it's recording everything that I'm saying, and in a moment, we'll stop it and test to see if we can hear it. Let's see what happens. If I press the big red button now, it's recording everything that I'm saying, and in a moment, we'll stop it and test to see if we can hear it. Could you hear my voice twice, Philippa?
I could, yes.
So, for my students, the next thing they have to do is click share, grab a link with me, and share it with me. I get them to share it on a Padlet. And now we have, it's asynchronous, but now we have an opportunity to share voices with each other, similar to what we might do on WhatsApp. But this requires no storage and very simple to share it. I can keep a running Google Doc or even a Jamboard. They can drop their voice recordings in. So I'm not having to, they can manage it themselves, not me having to rely on their parents helping them to get all these files back to me. So that's been a really lovely tool for us to work with. So for example, my students can record themselves reading the book.
Into this book, and she looked into that. There was magic for theme and magic for fact.
And then I can share my feedback with her.
Hi, Joanne. It's Fiona here. What do you say? Looked, with a T sound at the end. Otherwise, it was fantastic. Thanks again. Bye.
And just as I've stored it here on our Padlet, my students can do that too. They can just pop their link there on the Padlet for me, and I can reply in the comments with a Vocaroo. If my students have lots and lots of writing, that would take me a long time to go through and physically mark papers, and maybe not so COVID safe to be exchanging papers anymore. So this might be a good digital alternative for us, combining some of these tools, having Padlet documents up there, me using Vocaroo to give them a voice comment. And now we have a nice new system and regular routine for communication with our students. So these are just some of the ways that we have been using some technology, but underpinned by those practices of wanting to understand our learner needs, monitoring their progress along the way, and setting up some routine communication channels to make sure that we really are helping our learners to know where they are now and where they're going next. So I think our time is almost up, everybody. But thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We know you've had a long day, and we really appreciate having this opportunity to meet with you. I'm sure our colleagues will share the link to the Padlet. It will remain open as a resource for all of you. And if you'd like to learn more and connect with us, then you're welcome to come and join us on the Queensland Institute social media. We post links and ideas like this. For example, there's Vocaroo. Just last week, we were talking about this in class with the teachers that we work with. So we would love to hear from you, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Hi. Hi. How are you? I'm Enrique. Nice to meet you. I'm part of the Prony team. First of all, thank you for accepting our invitation. It was really lovely to have you here, and it's more than we could have expected. So thank you very, very much. And now, because we're almost running out of time, I only have this one question, because I was going through some of the comments on the YouTube channel or transmission stream, yeah, I guess, and there were some comments of teachers who were a little concerned or a little worried because some of their students, or maybe all of their students, don't have internet access. What can you suggest to those teachers who are working in those difficult conditions?
Yeah, look, it's a really big challenge. We know that in Mexico, you know, all of your education programs have been doing so well to give alternatives and having live streaming on TV and live streaming on YouTube and all those sorts of things. But certainly with lack of internet, I think, you know, the reality is for us, many of the methods that we've suggested here will take some setup and some opportunities for students to do things using the internet, but maybe not every day. So for example, maybe Jamboard is something that you're working on synchronously with your students throughout your time, particularly for assessments and assignments. And maybe it's just at the end of the week that they need to share their work with the teacher, whether it be sending the Jamboard link back through WhatsApp from their parents to the teacher. You know, some of those things would require a touch point with the internet at some periods, not on a day-to-day basis. I think some of the other things that we mentioned there about getting students to use hashtags, for example, and still writing it down on paper to give their teachers an understanding of what they have read, for example, even if they are sharing documents and sending them back and forth. I know lots of teachers are delivering packages to students and things. So it's still a method that you could use to see if your students have read and understood something as a different way rather than just comprehension questions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we hope our Prony colleagues will think about ways that they might use those methods, but in the ways they're using now without the internet.
Yeah. Also, I think some of the sites that you guys shared, we can use them offline. We don't necessarily have to be connected to the internet all the time, right?
No. And I think that's one of the things I really liked about some of those things like Vocaroo, for example, that it's something that I can set up and prepare. I can make many recordings and then just have the links on a page that I'm giving to students. So, for example, if I have an activity that has very complex instructions, then I will record it on Vocaroo, copy the link, put it on paper, and give that paper to my students if that's how we're communicating in packages. So they're things that the teacher might use to prepare their lesson materials, not necessarily for synchronous delivery on the internet all the time.
Yeah.
But certainly if you have that opportunity, then they're great tools for working live and synchronously too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for, once again, for accepting our invitation. I know that it's probably super early in the morning for you. So
Yeah.
Thank you for making that effort. And here we have with us Juan Carlos, who's also going to thank you, and who's going to share a few important messages with our audience. And so thank you very much.
Wow, that's the first thing I can say. Thank you, Philippa. Thank you, Fiona. It was mind-blowing. Everything, I think everything was amazing. A lot of things. We can learn also a lot about your culture. It's very different. It's very rich. So thanks a lot for this opportunity. It was a pleasure for me. I think also for the audience because I've seen the comments.
Yes, I'm seeing the comments too. Thank you so much, everyone. We don't use the live stream very much, so we don't know how to reply to you, but thank you so much. We can see them.
Thanks a lot. Y muchas gracias a todas y a todos ustedes por continuar en esta última participación hasta el final. Ahora van a poder ver abajo la liga para el registro. Nuevamente podrán ingresar a esta para la participación del día de hoy. Mañana vamos a continuar con otra participación. Pasen muy buena tarde y que estén muy bien.